Welcome everyone. This is the first session on what we call coordination. We can call it responsiveness of organisms to the environment, or we can call it sensitivity. We all remember that organisms have responsiveness or irritability or sensitivity as one of their characteristics. So we want to look into this concept of responsiveness of organisms to the environment. So this is the first session, and in this first session we want to basically understand what irritability is, what responsiveness is, and also what coordination is. That is the purpose for this session. We want to know all these terms and know the differences between them, and then understand the importance of these terms to organisms. Okay, so that is the purpose of this presentation. Okay, so irritability is what we are going to understand first. You can see the images that we have there. We have an eagle trying to catch a bird. Okay, and then we have a plant that is growing towards the direction of the sunlight. And then we have someone who has touched a hot object and quickly removed their hand. So these are basically examples that illustrate things that are happening within the environment. Okay, so the bird that is being chased by an eagle notices that the eagle, of course, if it does not fly away, the eagle will catch it and eat it. So the bird has noticed something within the environment that is dangerous to it, so it decides to fly away. And then for the plant needs sunlight for the process of photosynthesis. So without the sunlight, it cannot photosynthesize. So that means that it has to grow towards the towards the direction of the sunlight. Okay, that is important. Okay, so that means that it has detected something, that the light is in this direction, so that's where it has to grow towards. And then for the human who has touched a source of fire, they notice quickly that they actually need to remove their hand away such that they don't get burnt. Okay, so you notice that these are changes that happen around organisms, and the organisms need to respond, okay, or need to react. So that is the concept of sensitivity and irritability. Okay, sensitivity or irritability. So when organisms sense a change in their surroundings, they need to react quickly such that they can survive. If they don't, they will not survive. Okay, so these changes to the environment are very important for survival of the organisms. And then a closely related term is what we call responsiveness, which is the ability of an organism from the simplest single-celled creature to complex animals or plants to detect and react to changes in its internal or external environment. So basically what we are saying with this term is that not all organisms respond in the same way. What we call complex of animals and plants means that they are advanced. They are multicellular in nature, and they have different types of cells that can perform different functions. So that's why we use the word complex animals. But you also have simpler organisms. That means that they are usually unicellular and they don't have specialized cells that can perform specific functions and maybe respond in a faster way. So not all organisms can respond to the internal or external environment in the same way. So the ability of an organism to detect and react to changes in its environment is what we term as responsiveness. Okay, so organisms that are very simple, the ones we are calling the simplest single-celled organisms, are those that cannot react or respond quickly, okay, but still they have they have the ability to respond, but not in advanced ways as in complex plants or animals. And then let's look at the components of irritability. What we are saying here is that for an organism to be able to respond, there has to be a change within the environment that makes it to respond. This is to say that the organism will not respond if there is nothing that has changed, whether within its internal environment or external environment. Okay, so that change that triggers a response is what we call a stimulus. Okay, so it could be that the temperature has changed. It could be that the direction of the light has changed. It could be that there is no moisture. There is moisture at one point, and then the plant grows towards where there is moisture, or the organism moves towards where there is moisture. It could be anything. Okay, so that is what you call a stimulus, a change in the environment which triggers a response from an organism. Okay, a stimuli, when we say stimuli, okay, we are meaning it is the plural form of stimulus. Okay, stimuli is the plural form for stimulus. So stimuli, if I can write it here. Okay, so stimuli, that is the spelling for stimuli, which is the plural for stimulus. So response is how the organism reacts towards the change in the environment, or how the organism reacts towards the stimulus. So the organism can decide to move away, or it can decide to move towards the stimuli. And we shall look at the terms that we use if the organism moves towards the stimuli, towards the direction of the stimuli, or if it moves away from the stimuli. What terms do we use in that case? Okay? And then we have what we call receptors. These are cells or organs that can detect the stimuli. Okay, so for example, what cells did the bird use to detect that an eagle is coming? Okay, so the bird actually saw. Okay, so use the eyes to be able to see. Okay, and then after seeing, it had to fly. So what did it use? Flying by wings. Okay, flying by wings. Those wings have what you call muscles. Okay, those wings are basically muscles. The movement of the wings is because of the contraction and relaxation of muscles. Okay, so the muscles form what you call examples of what you call effectors. Okay, so we are saying that the eyes are examples of receptor organs. Okay, so the ego, the ego, of course, used the eyes to be able to see the bird. Again, at the same time, the bird used the eyes to be able to see the eagle. So that means that the eyes have what you call receptor cells or receptor cells, the cells that detect a change within the environment. Okay, so we can talk about receptor cells, or we can talk about receptors as being organs that can detect a stimuli. Okay, the person who touched the hot object, okay, was able to move the hand away from the hot object because on the skin we have receptor cells that detected the heat, okay, detected the heat, and then the person was able to move the hand away. Okay, so the person was able to move the hand away because the muscles moving the hand away involves the contraction and the relaxation of muscles. Okay, so the muscles are effectors, the ones that bring about that response that the organism needs to carry out. Okay, so we have effectors as those organs that carry out the response. Okay, so the quick movement of the hand away is aided by muscles, so we say that the muscles are the effectors in this case. Okay, so that is about that. So we move to another component which we call the coordinators. When we don't have coordination, proper coordination, we shall look at what coordination is just shortly. If we don't, if the information that comes to the hand is not well coordinated, it means that you're not going to move the hand in the right direction. Instead of moving your hand away from the fire, if there is no proper coordination, you will keep your hand on the hot object. Okay, so the coordinators in this case, we have the brain and generally the central nerve, the nervous system, and we shall look at it in the subsequent sessions. The information that you have touched a hot object has to go into the brain, and then the brain interprets that that is a hot object and you need to move your hand away. So that information has to follow a particular pattern. If it does not follow the right pattern or path, then you might find out that you're not going to execute the action in the way you are supposed to execute it, or you're not going to respond in the way you are supposed to respond. Okay, so when you talk about coordinators, we're basically saying that when you have a stimuli, when you have a stimulus, you need to be able to pick that stimuli by the receptor cells, or receptor cells need to detect that stimuli, and then message is sent to the brain for interpretation, and then after that interpretation, message is also sent to the effectors for it to respond. So we are saying that this information has to be has to follow the right pattern. If it doesn't, it means the response will not be a coordinated response. Okay, that is what we call coordinators. So the stimuli can be from outside, that is the external environment around the organism, or it can be internal, okay, within the organism. What makes you to go and drink water? When you feel thirsty, how is that thirst initiated? It is internal, okay? It is internal. What makes you to go and eat is also internal. Those are internal stimuli. And then how you respond, it is a positive response if you move towards the stimuli. For example, the plants now grow towards the sunlight. We say that is a positive response. If they grow away from the response, then we say that is a negative response. Okay, movement away from the stimulus is called negative response. For example, the woodlice moves away from light. Okay, that means that when they detect that there is light here, they move towards the darker areas. Okay, that is the negative stimuli. A negative response, I mean. Okay, so again, let's remind ourselves of what coordination is. When, for example, I pick my pen and write whatever I want to write here, the message for what I want to write comes from the brain, okay? And then I move my hands, okay? And then I move my hands to be able to write, okay? So if my system does not coordinate these activities properly for me to be able to write, then I cannot write. Okay, so for example, if I want to write the word boy here, the brain tells me to write the word boy, the hands move, and then I write the word. Okay, so you see that different parts of my body are responding. My brain sends the message, and then that message is interpreted, and then my hand is able to move in the right way, even holding this pen. If the messages are not being interpreted very well, what we call the integration, if the messages are not well integrated, I will not produce the activity, which is writing. Okay, so most of the activities that we engage in, it could be playing football, it could be riding a bicycle. You have different parts of our bodies being instructed to do a particular task, such that we can be able to achieve the end result of the task, which is either riding, which is either writing, it could be anything. So coordination in biology, when we talk about coordination in biology, we are referring to a situation where you have harmonious working together of the different parts of an organism to produce or to achieve a specific function. Okay, so for example, riding a bicycle, doing any activity, it involves a number of things. So the same thing with organisms, or the same thing happens also with plants, and we shall look at this in our subsequent sessions. Okay, so that marks the end of our presentation, where we have looked at the concept of sensitivity, irritability, or coordination. We are saying that the environment is always changing. It can change in terms of heat, that is temperature, it can change in terms of moisture, it can change in terms of sunlight, it can change in terms of oxygen levels. So that means that we need to be able to respond. If we don't respond, that means that we cannot survive. So all organisms can respond in different ways. Their degree or their ability to respond to these changes, of course, varies, and we call that responsiveness. The small organisms still can respond, but they may not respond in advanced ways, just like complex organisms such as human beings and other animals or plants. Thank you for listening.